Story 1. The Phantom of Wichita. The BTK Killer, Dennis Rader. The setting, Wichita, Kansas. A seemingly average American city. But beginning in 1974, a shadow stretched over its residents. A phantom who called himself BTK. The terror begins. It started with the Otero family. Joseph, Julie, and two of their young children were found brutally murdered in their home. The killer left behind a scene of chilling precision and depravity. He had bound, tortured, and killed them. The very actions that would later define his self-proclaimed moniker, BTK. For years, he haunted Wichita. He struck again and again, seemingly at random, choosing victims, stalking them, breaking into their homes, and enacting his sadistic rituals. Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Maureen Hedge, Vicki Weggerl, Dolores Davis. The list grew, spanning nearly 2 decades. The taunting. What set BTK apart was his craving for attention. He didn't just kill, he communicated. He sent letters to the police and local news stations, filled with graphic details of his crimes, crude poems, and demands for recognition. He reveled in the fear he created, playing a cat-and-mouse game with authorities who seemed perpetually one step behind. Then, after the murder of Dolores Davis in 1991, BTK went silent. Wichita breathed a collective, uneasy sigh of relief. Had he died? Moved away? Been incarcerated for something else? The case grew cold, a terrifying chapter seemingly closed. The ghost reappears, but in 2004, the phantom returned. Perhaps feeling forgotten, BTK resurfaced, sending packages containing items belonging to his victims, more letters, and even puzzles. He seemed almost nostalgic for his reign of terror. This renewed communication, however, would be his undoing in the age of modern technology. The undoing. In early 2005, BTK sent a floppy disk to a local TV station. He had previously asked the police, via a coded message, if information on a floppy disk could be traced. The police, eager to lure him into a mistake, publicly responded, via a newspaper ad, that it would be safe. It wasn't. Metadata embedded in a deleted file on the disk pointed directly to Dennis at Christ Lutheran Church and linked to a document last modified by Rader. The investigation rapidly zeroed in on Dennis Rader, a church council president, former Boy Scout leader, and city compliance officer. A man hiding in plain sight. His DNA, obtained covertly from a family member, matched evidence from the crime scenes. The mask falls. On February 25, 2005, Dennis Rader, the man neighbors knew as a sometimes overzealous but otherwise unremarkable figure, was arrested. The mask of normalcy crumbled, revealing the monster beneath. He confessed in chilling detail to 10 murders, showing little remorse. Sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms, the phantom who terrorized Wichita for 3 decades was finally caged. His reign ended not by a dramatic shootout, but by his own hubris and a tiny trail of digital breadcrumbs. Story 2. The Empty Frames. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum Heist. The setting, Boston, Massachusetts. Early morning, March 18, 1990. The city is sleepy after St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Inside the ornate walls of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, a palace filled with priceless art collected by Gardner herself, 2 young security guards are on duty. The deception, just after 1 a.m., a buzz at the security door. 2 men, dressed convincingly as police officers, stand outside. They claim they're responding to a disturbance call. Against protocol, one of the guards lets them in. This decision would trigger the largest property theft in history. Once inside, the officers quickly reveal their true intent. They declare, "Gentlemen, this is a robbery," and order the guard away from the panic buttons. The guards are swiftly overpowered, handcuffed, and taken to the museum's basement, where they are bound with duct tape and left in separate areas. The heist. For the next 81 minutes, the thieves have free reign of the quiet museum. They don't smash and grab. Their movement seems somewhat planned, yet oddly selective. They head to the Dutch room. There, they violently cut Rembrandt's Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee and a lady and gentleman in black from their frames. They try to remove a large Rembrandt self-portrait, but apparently find it too difficult. They smash the frame of Vermeer's The Concert, one of only about 34 known paintings by the master, and take the canvas. They also steal a small Flink landscape. Elsewhere, they take 5 Degas drawings, a Manet portrait, an ancient Chinese bronze gu vessel, and even a bronze eagle finial from atop a Napoleonic flag. Strangely, they leave behind more valuable works like Titans. The discovery. The thieves make 2 separate trips to their car with the artwork, then vanish into the night. The bound guards are discovered hours later when the morning shift arrives. The scene is one of violation. Empty frames hanging askew on the walls, shards of glass on the floor. 13 irreplaceable treasures, valued conservatively at $500 million, are gone. The endless search. The investigation kicks off immediately. A whirlwind of leads, theories, and dead ends. Suspicion falls on Boston's Irish mob, particularly figures like James Whitey Bulger and connections to the local Italian mafia. Theories abound. Was it commissioned? Was it leverage? Was the art taken overseas? The FBI investigates, leads across continents. Years turn into decades. Key suspects die. Informants offer tantalizing but ultimately fruitless clues. The museum offers a massive reward, eventually increased to $10 million, for information leading directly to the recovery of the art in good condition. The legacy. Today, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum still stands, a monument to art and its eccentric collector. And in the Dutch Room and elsewhere, empty frames hang on the walls, stark, haunting reminders of the audacious theft. They represent not only the missing masterpieces, but also one of the art world's greatest unsolved mysteries. The art has never been recovered, and no one has ever been charged for the crime. The 81 minutes the thieves spent inside remain shrouded in speculation. The fate of the stolen treasures. Story 3. The Whispers on the Moors. The Moors murders, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. The setting, Manchester, England, and the bleak, sprawling Saddleworth Moor nearby during the early 1960s. A time of social change, but also a time when unimaginable darkness festered beneath the surface. The architects of evil. Ian Brady was an intelligent but deeply disturbed stock clerk with nihilistic views and a fascination with Nazism and sadism. Myra Hindley was initially a typist, seemingly ordinary, but she fell completely under Brady's spell. Together, they formed a monstrous partnership, embarking on a series of child abductions and murders between July 1963 and October 1965. The victims. Their victims were horrifyingly young. Pauline Reed, 16, vanished on her way to a disco. John Kilbride, 12, was lured away from a market. Keith Bennett, 12, disappeared while walking to his grandmother's house. Leslie and Downey, just 10 years old, was abducted from a Boxing Day funfair. Edward Evans, 17, was their final victim. Brady and Hindley didn't just kill. They tortured their victims, sexually assaulted several, and even made audio recordings of Leslie and Downey's final terrified moments. The unveiling. The horror finally came to light in October 1965. Hindley's brother-in-law, David Smith, witnessed Brady brutally murdering Edward Evans with an axe in Hindley's home. Terrified, Smith went to the police. When investigators searched the house, they found notebooks detailing disposal plans and, crucially, photographs taken by Brady, landscape shots of Saddleworth Moor, and chilling portraits of Hindley posing near shallow grave sites. They also discovered the harrowing audio tape of Leslie and Downey. The search on the moor. The photos became grim treasure maps. Police launched extensive searches across the desolate moorland. They eventually found the bodies of Leslie and Downey and John Kilbride buried in shallow graves. Pauline Reed's body wouldn't be found until decades later, in 1987, after renewed confessions from Brady and Hindley. But one victim remained lost to the Pete and Heather. The lingering pain. Brady and Hindley were tried and sentenced to life imprisonment in 1966 for the murders of Kilbride, Downey, and Evans. They later confessed to the murders of Reed and Bennett. Hindley, with her bleached blonde hair and impassive expression during the trial, became known as the most evil woman in Britain. She made several appeals and campaigns for release, claiming she was reformed, but public outrage kept her imprisoned until her death in 2002. Brady remained defiant and unrepentant, playing games with police about the location of Keith Bennett's body until his own death in 2017. The Lost Boy. To this day, the body of 12-year-old Keith Bennett has never been found, despite numerous searches and pleas from his heartbroken mother, Winnie Johnson, who passed away in 2012 without being able to give her son a proper burial. The Moores murders remain a deep scar on the British psyche, a story of profound cruelty, manipulation, and the enduring agony of a family still searching for their lost boy on the bleak and windswept moors. Story 4. Poison in the Medicine Cabinet. The Chicago Tylenol Murders. The setting, the Chicago metropolitan area, late September 1982. Autumn is settling in, and life carries on as usual. People catch colds, have headaches, and reach for trusted over-the-counter remedies. Sudden death. On the morning of September 29th, tragedy struck without warning. 12-year-old Mary Kellerman of Elk Grove Village woke up with cold symptoms. Her parents gave her an extra-strength Tylenol capsule. Within hours, she was dead. That same day, Adam Janis, a postal worker in Arlington Heights, also died suddenly after taking Tylenol. As his grieving family gathered, his brother Stanley and sister-in-law Teresa took Tylenol from the same bottle for their stress-induced headaches. They too collapsed and died within days. 3 more deaths followed quickly in the surrounding suburbs. Mary McFarland in Elmhurst, Paula Prince in Chicago, and Mary Reiner in Winfield. All had taken extra-strength Tylenol shortly before their sudden, inexplicable demise. The deadly link. Investigators, initially baffled by the cluster of sudden deaths, quickly made the terrifying connection thanks to the quick thinking of 2 off-duty firefighters who compared notes on the Janis deaths and the Kellerman case. The common element: extra-strength Tylenol capsules. Urgent testing revealed the horrifying truth. Capsules in the victims' bottles have been deliberately laced with lethal doses of potassium cyanide. Panic spreads. News broke, and panic swept not just Chicago, but the entire nation. Tylenol, one of the country's most trusted brand names, was now associated with random, invisible death. Who would do such a thing? Why? Was it terrorism? A disgruntled employee? A random act of malice? People emptied their medicine cabinets, terrified that their own painkillers might be poisoned. Johnson & Johnson, the maker of Tylenol, acted swiftly, issuing a massive recall of over 31 million bottles, costing the company over $100 million. Police cars drove through Chicago neighborhoods, issuing warnings over loudspeakers. The investigation and extortion. The investigation became a nationwide effort. It was determined that the tampering likely didn't happen at the manufacturing plants. Someone had bought the Tylenol bottles from store shelves, taken them home, carefully opened the capsules, replaced the acetaminophen powder with cyanide, put the capsules back together, and then returned the poison bottles to shelves in different stores across the Chicago area. A suspect emerged when James Lewis sent an extortion letter to Johnson & Johnson, demanding $1 million to stop the killing. Lewis was eventually tracked down and convicted of extortion, serving 13 years in prison. However, he consistently denied involvement in the actual murders, and despite extensive investigation, authorities could never gather enough evidence to charge him or anyone else with the poisonings themselves. The legacy, the Chicago Tylenol murders, remain officially unsolved. No one has ever been held criminally responsible for the 7 deaths. However, the case had a profound and lasting impact. It fundamentally changed the pharmaceutical and food packaging industries, leading directly to the development and mandatory use of tamper-evident packaging, foil seals, plastic neck wraps, and sealed boxes that make it obvious if a product has been opened. While the killer was never caught, the tragedy spurred safety innovations that protect countless people every day. The fear that gripped the nation in 1982 serves as a chilling reminder of vulnerability and the unseen dangers that can lurk in the most mundane places. James Lewis died in 2023, closing one chapter but leaving the core mystery unresolved.